All right, everybody, welcome back to the Just Browsing podcast. I'm your co-host, Zach Jones, here with my buddy Matt, and we're here to do an NBA playoffs episode today. We were going to have a special guest, one of our other buddies, Brandon, here to talk a little NBA hoops, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, he had to bail last minute. So since we're here...
His dog got sprayed by a skunk.
I wasn't going to put his business all out there on the street, but... since we're here, Matt and I decided to just go ahead and record a podcast. As we've discussed on some of our last episodes with the movie franchise bracket, you know, this is the Just Browsing podcast. We want to cover a lot of different topics on this podcast, and one of those that we are both passionate about and that our friends are passionate about are sports in general, and especially NBA basketball. So NBA playoffs are in full swing right now. In fact, in the background right now, where we're doing the podcast, the Lakers and the Portland Trailblazers are finishing up Game 3, and it looks like the Lakers are going to pull that one out. So we'll save that series for a few minutes from now to wait to see the final of this score, and then we can kind of talk about where all the series are at as of roughly 3 games in round 1 here in the Eastern and Western Conference. So yeah, so we're just going to do a little NBA playoff talk today. We might not go too long. Going to save most of our playoff talk probably for when Brandon's back and his dog has not been sprayed by a skunk and he's resolved that issue. So
Just an unfortunate event, you know. But we all got to deal with life on the home front, so we get it. But yeah, I think, you know, so we could go through the teams real quick if, you know, people want to know.
Yeah,
Just go through the...
I think what I'd like to do is let's establish the playoff picture. Like, let's look at the bracket and go over, okay, here's what the matchups are in the West. Here's what the matchups are in the East. Here's where all of those series are at. And then what we think those results are going to be, and then kind of go forward into the playoffs and discuss who we think is going to maybe win future rounds. So,
All right, well, so...
You got the computer up.
I got the computer up. So let's go through... Well, we're going to start in the West. You know, Zach and I are both Nuggets fans. Sadly, but we are. So with the 1 seed, you got obviously the Lakers. They're playing against the 8 seed Trailblazers, like Zach just said. They're currently wrapping up Game 3. The Rockets of Thunder, that's 4-5. They just wrapped up Game 3 a little bit earlier this evening. Our hometown Nuggets versus the Utah Jazz are 3-6, and that Game 3 was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Clippers Mavericks, which is 2-7, was also yesterday for Game 3. So that was your Western Conference side. On the East, the Bucks Magic wrapped up Game 3 earlier today. That's 1-8. Pacers Heat also wrapped up their game earlier today, and that's 4-5. The Celtics 76ers wrapped up Game 3 yesterday, and that is 3-6. And the Raptors Nets also played yesterday, with that matchup being the 2-7. So, I believe, is that game done?
13 seconds left. It looks like LA is going to win. They're up by 10 points right now.
All right, so let's jump down to the 2-7 that finished yesterday then for the West, which is the Clippers Mavericks.
Okay.
And the Clippers are up in that series 2-1. I'm going to have to, you know, the Mavericks, they've got talent on that team, and they're a young team, and I can see them, you know, coming up the ranks of the Western Conference here in the next couple of years. I don't see them being able to pull off this upset with Luka out. I don't know. It's an ankle sprain. They said the swelling's not bad, and I think he had an MRI, and they said it was fine. But we've, you know, playing basketball, playing football, we've had ankle injuries, and that shit doesn't go away in a couple days.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the main storyline now, of course, you know, if we'd have done this before the playoffs even started, we wouldn't know this information. But here we are 3 games in, and after last night's game, Luka Doncic has this injury, and we don't know what that means for him moving forward. We don't know if it's an ankle sprain and he's maybe going to be out just 1 or 2 games, or maybe that's like several weeks and he's probably not going to be back unless they make the finals. So I think the Mavericks without Luka, that really, really hurts them, especially against – it's such a tough matchup against the Clippers. They were really scrappy with Luka in there, and I think if he's healthy and he's playing well, they do have a shot because they have pulled off a game in that series so far.
Yeah,
like they're playing
and they've been
Clippers
very
well.
competitive.
Yeah.
It's not been blowout games.
Exactly.
It's been very competitive.
And, you know, yesterday they only lost by 8, like you said, so it's been competitive. But like you said, I think the main storyline here is definitely Luka's injury, because if it's not a big deal and he can come back in a couple games and he's anywhere close to 100%, I think this is still a competitive series. But if he's going to be out for a while, I don't know what's going on with that. Like I think the Clippers are going to definitely take that series.
Yeah, and I think, that's an injury you can't rush back from. I just don't think I don't think he'll be healthy enough the rest of these playoffs, like you said, unless maybe they can make it to the conference finals or the NBA finals, which is unfortunate. He's a fun player to watch. I think him and Kristaps are going to be a duo that are going to excel.
It's an exciting duo, man. I really like watching. I haven't seen too many Mavericks games because wasn't this season Kristaps' first season back coming off of his big injury?
Right, because he was traded last year, but he was hurt.
He
couldn't play.
So seeing them back healthy playing together is really exciting because two really exciting players. And Luka, like you said, I think he's definitely the future of the NBA.
And they're young. Kristaps is still young too.
And Kristaps is still young too and very talented.
Yeah.
So those two together on that team are really exciting for the future. But, you got the Clippers who have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
It's just tough. If you only have one superstar going against those two superstars, chances are you're not going to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, and I think the Clippers, they're coached very well.
They got Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers
he's been there, done that. He's a proven successful coach.
Right.
So.
And, obviously Kawhi, the silent killer, and doesn't want to talk anything, and then shows up on the court, and he can play both ends of the court, which is, in my opinion, what I would much rather have. If you drop, 15 points, 10 boards, and a couple assists, but then you can lock down, the team's best offensive weapon, then I'd much rather have you on my team than someone like a Steph Curry that, he can score a shit ton of points, but on the defensive end, he can be a liability.
Yeah, and isn't Kawhi like a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year
winner?
Yeah.
So
you got
MVP from last year's playoffs.
So you got Kawhi, who's won 2 NBA championships with 2 different franchises, both times NBA Finals MVP, and he's a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year. That guy is a bona fide superstar. And for those who didn't know, the game yesterday, Game 3, when the Clippers won 130 to 122, Kawhi finished with 38 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists. Pretty dominant game there from Kawhi. So, yeah, I think Clippers are going to win this one. I don't see this one being, especially now with the Luka injury, I just don't see this. I don't see Dallas being able to pull this one off, especially they're already down 2-1.
No, they're gonna have to have their bench really step up, and I mean they're filling a big hole in that lineup. So
yeah,
I think everybody in the NBA realm picked the Clippers to win this.
Yeah.
I do give Dallas a lot of credit. They've been fighting and playing really, really well, but I just think without Luka, I think it's going to be the next 2 games. Clippers are going to take it. And
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the next 2 games Clippers win and then just close it out 4-1.
And then, the winner of that is going to go into so I think we can both agree that we think the Clippers are going to finish that series off.
Yeah.
And then the next series I was going to touch on would be the Nuggets Jazz.
I was going to say, because they play the winner of the Nuggets Jazz, right?
Right.
Is that how it works out?
Right.
Okay.
And, the Nuggets started off great in Game 1. They were up by like 20 points.
Overtime win, right?
Overtime win, Game 1. They came out hot. They had a huge lead. Typical Nuggets fashion. They let us all down. Made it a close game. Started losing. Ended up coming back. The fourth quarter was, if you love offense, it was a entertaining Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray matchup. Just trading buckets back and forth. Nuggets pulled out Game 1, and then games 2 and 3, I think the Nuggets might have still been at the pool in Orlando.
Yeah. So we got the scores through the first 3 games for Nuggets Jazz. Nuggets won by 10 in the first game in overtime. It was 135-125, like you said. Pretty exciting game. Game 2, Jazz win 124-105. Not even close.
Nope.
Game 3 yesterday was really disappointing. Not even close. Jazz win 124-87. So I don't know where the defense has been the last couple games. What's bothered me, I haven't had a chance to actually sit down and watch the games because with the whole bubble scenario, it's so different than normal playoffs because
They're playing at 2 o'clock.
they're playing these games all throughout the day. It's almost
Right.
like round one in March Madness where there's games all day long. So the Nuggets will be playing at like 2 in the afternoon. Well, I have to work. I can't watch. So I'm just trying to get the scoring updates. And yesterday, all day long, I'm getting the scoring updates after every quarter. And I'm like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just at pretty much every major, the end of like the second and third quarter, it's like we're down by 30. What's
Yeah.
happening?
Well, and, I mean,
Against a team that we should supposedly be at least evenly matched with, if not,
And we're being smoked.
ranked. We're ranked higher than them in
Right.
the playoffs, and we finished third in the Western Conference in the
right.
final
And
standings,
then they were 6th.
and they were sixth,
by a
and
couple
here we are
games,
just
but-
getting smacked.
And, I mean,
And it's pretty much, from what I can tell, all Donovan Mitchell. That guy's been kind of balling out.
which is really sad because we traded him away after we drafted him.
Yeah. So I'm gonna look this up. How many points he's scored in all 3 games?
But, you know, as a Nuggets fan,
So game 1 was when he went for 57
yeah, he set a record.
in a losing effort. I believe that was a Jazz playoff record, wasn't it?
I think
Or
it was
close.
an NBA record for players like under 23, or like he was in like the top 3 or something for that.
Yeah.
So
Game 2, he goes for 30. And then, let's see, game 3, he goes for 20.
right. So
But it's been a lot of Donovan Mitchell.
let me go through this trade for you real quick because the Nuggets traded him at the 13th pick. So let me scroll down to it. Because
And what year was that? Because this is actually news to me. I mean, not news to me, but I'd like to get the official breakdown of this because I don't know enough of the details about it.
So this was 2 or 3 years ago, 2017. So 3 years ago.
Okay.
So this was the trade. The Jazz acquired Donovan Mitchell at the 13th pick from the Nuggets for Trey Lyles and the number 24 pick.
And then
Donovan
he's-
Mitchell's been frying
Right.
ever since he got to the NBA.
He's done nothing but go to Utah and become their best player in the
Right.
face of the franchise, basically. Which is not the worst thing in the world because the Nuggets the last couple of seasons have been a really good regular season team. And I think that's one of the things that you and me and Brandon have discussed is the thing that teases Nuggets fans is when you finish third in the Western Conference behind the 2 LA teams in terms of best record, and then you come into the playoffs and play like a team who barely scraped into the 8th seed. You know what I mean? Like, that's how the Nuggets have looked so far.
Right.
And it's like they're the most underwhelming 3 seed I could possibly imagine in the Western Conference.
Well,
and I hate to say that because I'm a Denver fan and I want to
Right.
see them succeed. But you just know going into the playoffs, you're like, okay, we're coming in as a 3 seed, but they're going to let me down.
Well,
like,
so-
you just have that thought in the back of your head, you know?
Yeah, well, and going back to the trade real quick because I just found who we got. So at the end of the day, we traded Donovan Mitchell. That is the 13th pick in the draft for Trey Lyles and Tyler Lydon.
Yeah, who?
Exactly. So could you imagine, had we, in a perfect world, gone back and never traded him, we could have Jamal Murray at point, Donovan Mitchell at shooting guard, Paul Millsap at power forward, and Michael Porter Jr. sitting there at small forward, and
then
Jokic at
Jokic,
center.
yeah.
We would have the best starting 5 in the NBA. And I don't think anyone could argue that in a
That's a pretty strong lineup.
realistic sense. And instead, we traded him away to get smacked by him in the playoffs. So I'm
Right.
not saying that series is over. You know,
I don't think it's over either, but if the Nuggets come out and play like they've played the last 2 games, this is
the Nuggets have to win tomorrow
wash, yeah.
for them to have a chance to
They got to play
you
some
know,
defense.
make it a solid series. And
You
I'm
can't-
not saying that because it would be 3-1. I'm saying that because if they don't win tomorrow, even if they tie it up and go to Game 7, you're so demoralized at
I was gonna
3-1.
say-
You're in a bubble. Like,
Going down 3-1, you're not like Cleveland was against the Golden State Warriors a few years ago in the finals, coming down 3-1, of being being led by LeBron saying, I refuse to go lose this series 4-1. You know, I don't see the Nuggets having that kind of fire and fight in them if they go down
No.
3-1. And we just can't be giving up 130 points every game to the Jazz and expect to win. I just don't see that working out.
no, not at all.
Play some defense, you know? I think if we can hold them to like right around 100, maybe a little over 100, we stand a much better shot at winning because I think both those teams averaged like 111 points a game or something this year.
Well,
So pretty even offensively, but if we're just not going to play defense and let Donovan Mitchell just go off, like Utah's going to win.
I think one big thing too is the Nuggets kind of seem like they just, when I've watched them play, besides like maybe Mason Plumlee, very few people will crash the offensive boards.
Yeah.
And you'll have, you know, almost all 5 guys at all times around the perimeter. And
Yeah.
those aren't good scoring chances.
Right.
Even if,
You're not giving yourself any second chance opportunities.
I mean, even the best 3-point shooters in the league shoot, what, maybe 40,
I was gonna say 40 at the top,
45% throughout the season. So you have a 45% chance of making that shot, even if you're the best 3-point shooter in the league that year.
Yeah.
That's not a very good scoring opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sure.
You
if
should be
it's a wide
assuming
open
there's going to be a
three,
rebound.
Right.
If you're on offense. Yeah.
Sure, if it's a wide open 3, I'm not going to say don't take it. But if you're not a 3-point shooter, don't take the 3. Work for a better opportunity.
Right.
But then they do that, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, the shot clock's at 2.6 seconds, and now you're kicking the ball to every other person, and then you throw up a bad shot.
Right. You don't want, like bad possessions.
They
You
don't
want
utilize their possessions very well.
Yeah.
They either rush their possession or no one moves and the ball just gets jammed, and then all of a sudden they have to throw up a bad shot, and
And you know what?
95% of the time they're going to miss that.
I haven't been watching as much as I should have this year. And obviously with the whole pandemic thing kind of threw a wrench into the entire NBA season. But what you were just talking about bad possessions and stuff for the Nuggets, what they'll do when you'll watch in terms of, basketball is a game of momentum a lot of the times. And what they'll do is they'll have bad possessions and follow it up with lackadaisical defense. So throw up a bad shot on offense, come down the court, let Utah score immediately, and just keep doing that possession after possession after possession. Well, that's how you find yourself down by 30 and losing the series. You can't keep doing that over and over.
Well, and I think one thing, and this is just an opinion on all of basketball, March Madness, high school, whatever level you want to be at, if one team makes a 3 and it's a 3 or 4 point game, you don't have to match.
Yeah, exactly.
You just go down, play your offensive possession, get some points, whether it's a 2, 3, or you get the foul and you make 1 or 2 of your free throws. Play good defense.
Go get a stop.
Defense is going to win championships.
Yeah.
And people are going to go, well, no, if you score more points. No shit. If you score more points, you're going to win.
Right.
Typical John Madden thing. He goes, well, he scored a touchdown, one more point than the other team, so that's why they won. It's like, yeah, we get that.
But how you turn the tide
But how you I mean,
is getting stops.
and I know this is a different sport. Huge Broncos fan, I'm going to die being a Broncos fan. 2015 Super Bowl. Our offense had less than 200 yards, and we were Super Bowl champions.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most prime example of the expression of defense wins championships that I've ever seen in my sports fan life.
We didn't score a touchdown until, what was it, late fourth quarter?
Yeah.
When we had a 3-yard run after our defense got a turnover and had it inside the 10.
Right.
And then we got they got a holding penalty in the end zone, so we got the ball at the 1-yard line, and we ran it like 3 times, and we finally scored.
Yeah.
Defense wins championships.
It's defense. And that's what I was saying is if you have these bad possessions and you follow them up with lackadaisical defense and just keep doing that over and over and over and you're not getting any stops, like the way you turn the momentum back in your favor, even if you're struggling offensively and having bad possessions, get stops repeatedly or at least make them work for it really hard, tire them out.
Don't give them easy fouls either. I mean,
none of this easy, like letting people dart into the lane and go for easy layups or just – like you said, fouling people, just giving them 2 free throws automatically, and then going down the court and having terrible offensive possessions again. Like I said, that's a recipe to lose the series.
Right, and I know we're going on about the Nuggets, but that's our team that we
and it's just frustrating because we want them to do well.
I mean, it was years ago when we had Ty Lawson, George Karl, we were the running gun team.
I miss George Karl. He was great.
We averaged like 64 fast break points a game. We had the home. We were like 26-3 at home or something like that. Like, just ridiculous stats. And, I mean, it just – I look at everything now and I go, there's no, hustle. There's no drive and I think, because I'm a huge hockey fan and they've talked a lot about it, and one of their coaches has said it, he goes, it's the teams that want to stay in the bubble that are going to stay in the bubble.
Yeah.
if you want to be here, you believe you should be here, and you want to win, whether there's fans here or not, but you want to be an NBA champion, you're going to will yourself to do it.
That's a good point. There was I was listening to this other podcast the other day where they were talking NBA hoops, and one guy brought up, I can't remember which player he was talking about now, but he was saying it's almost like this guy didn't get the memo of like, hey, the players like signed an agreement saying we want to come back and play during the pandemic and the bubble. It's almost like he didn't get that memo and he's still in like ultimate vacation mode.
Yeah.
And I think that's something you have to consider with these playoffs is they're not a normal playoffs. We're playing in the bubble. And this is after, 4 months since the season was halted? Yeah. It was in March, right? When Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz they were going to play that night. Or I think they had already played.
They had already played, and then
he tested positive, and then right after that, they were going to tip off some other games. They canceled those. So it's been since then. We're at the end of August. We just started basketball back in the bubble at the end of July. So these guys have been, who knows? Okay, obviously you would assume most of them stayed in shape physically, but how many of them stayed in shape up here mentally, and like kept in that game mode of like, hey, the season's not over. If we come back and play, I need to be ready to go when we come back.
It would have to be the ones that wanted it the most. And the thing is one player can will their team to a certain level, but you're not going to will your team to an NBA championship. You could will your team to an NBA Finals like LeBron did when he was on Cleveland. Yeah. A decade ago.
But LeBron's a different breed.
And the East was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, their second seed in the East had like 6 wins.
Right. And we don't have a LeBron level guy. We just don't.
I mean, and
as much as I love Jokic, I don't see him being like the fiery verbal leader of, snapping the Nuggets back into like, hey guys, we need to fight back, win this series. We're a 3 seed in the West. We need to at least advance past round 1.
Wake up.
What are we doing here?
Well,
I just don't see him. I don't like. Who is like the leader on the Nuggets? Who's going to be the guy to be like lead the charge? I don't really know who that is, and I think it's
vocally.
Important
I don't know if they have like a true vocal leader. Yeah. They all, they're the NBA. I've got strong feelings about how soft the NBA is, and we'll take that another time.
Yeah, we'll table that discussion.
But as far as a vocal leader for the Nuggets go, I mean, I've never seen one of them step up and try and get in their teammates' faces.
It's
really,
like it's young guys and quiet guys.
And there's a lot of talent. Paul Millsap as the veteran to kind of step up and do that and fire them up. You don't have to get in their face and scream at them, but you want to excite them.
You need
want
someone
them
to
be
snap
like
people out of it.
Listen, our playoff. I mean, if they lose tomorrow, they'll be down 3-1. But you got to go into tomorrow saying our playoff lives are on the line. Yeah. We got to show up. We've been embarrassed.
Yeah.
Not just
2 games in a row.
Not like, oh, we lost 2 close games. Like we're right there. We just got to fix 1 or 2 quarters, or 1 or 2 plays. You got to fix 4 quarters of basketball for the last 2 games. So you got to fix 8 quarters of what the fuck did we do wrong?
Yeah.
Because we didn't do anything right.
You know what I actually caught the end of one of the Nuggets games the other day, and I was listening to the commentators talk, and one commentator asked the other guy, he said, if you're going to go over the film for this team after this game, what are you going to talk about if you're the coach of this team? He said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit everyone in the film room. I'm going to just turn the film on of this game and just let it run. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to say, watch your guys' body language. Because he goes, there's no, you see those teams, and the Nuggets are one of these teams last couple of games where they go down.
And they shut down.
And they just shut down. And everyone just kind of starts walking around, playing at 75% effort.
It's like they're trying to play
looking
victim.
Defeated. Yeah. That's not what – you can't have that in the NBA and survive at all because the team who's up on you – is going to just put their foot on your throat and be relentless with it and blow you out by almost 40 points, which is what happened to the Nuggets last game. You can't have that.
I mean,
at least make it respectable. If you're going to lose, let's fight and claw back and lose by 8 instead of 37.
Make it a game to where you can go, all right, like
we were right there.
We got to fix 1 or 2 things, and then we're back in there. But
I think we've rambled too long on the Nuggets.
Yeah, well, we'll just keep going through the West real quick.
We're pulling for the Nuggets. We really want them to win, but I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say Utah is going to pull this one out because Denver and Utah, I think, are very evenly matched. But you and I talked before the playoffs started, and I was like, dude, we drew the Jazz in the playoffs, and I'm nervous about that. I almost would have rather played like Dallas or someone because – for whatever reason, every time I watch the Jazz play the Nuggets, and I've been to a game in person where the Jazz have played the Nuggets, and the Jazz, you're looking at them play, and you're like, they're not really blowing me away, and yet they beat the Nuggets every time they play them.
just
It's like they
seems like
just
they're the
have their
kryptonite.
number. I don't know what it is. So I was like, when we drew the Jazz in the playoffs, I was like, I'm nervous about this. I don't like this matchup. So far, my gut feeling has been proved correct. So
Well, later in the week when we get Brandon on and the series could be over,
we'll have our thoughts.
We'll round back to it. And
I just hope, even if we lose to the Jazz, I hope we push it to 7 games. Let's
Make
not
it-
lose 4-1 after just winning 1 game in overtime. That would be disappointing.
we got to make something happen in the offseason.
That'd be a huge
If we don't make it
underachievement.
to the conference finals this year, we got to make something happen in the
I was gonna
offseason.
say,
We got rid of
because didn't we lose in round 1 last year as well?
No, we beat the Spurs round 1 in
Oh,
Game
okay,
7,
and then
we
lost
lost in
round two.
2 in Game 7 to the
Was that to
Trailblazers
Portland?
at home.
Yeah. Okay. Which we'll
So-
get to Portland here in a second.
So yeah, we'll move to the next
Yeah.
matchup in the West, which was the 4-5, which is Rockets Thunder. Honestly, the Thunder have some good players, but I just, as much as I dislike the, sorry, my dog is thinking that something in the house is bark worthy. But as much as I don't like, James Harden and Russell Westbrook as the players,
Should we just pause it real quick?
yeah. All right. So, anyways, I'm not a huge fan of Westbrook and Harden. I'm not taking anything away from them being great players. Me personally, I don't like them, especially Harden, who scores 95% of his points from flopping and falling on the ground like a little. And he no joke shoots what, 15 free throws a game.
So I think Harden is one of those players that, outside of Houston Rockets fans, I think NBA fans despise watching James Harden play basketball.
Yeah.
He's one of the most frustrating players to watch. He's great. He's one of the most talented scorers that I've ever seen.
He also runs with the ball from half court.
But
without
like you
dribbling.
said, the dude will drive into the lane, and he does this thing where he matches up with someone, dribbles in between his legs 117 times, trying to shake them one way or another. Either pulls up for a 3 after taking 6 step backs without dribbling, which is a charge. I don't know why we're not calling that. Or not a charge, a travel. Sorry,
Travel.
I don't know why we're not calling that. Or he'll drive past them and he gets lightly bumped, flails his arms up, they call a foul, he drains 2 free throws and just does that all game long. So
Yeah.
he gets, like you said, 15, 20 points off of free throws.
I mean, it goes back to one of my points earlier about
He's
the
so annoying
NBA
to
being
watch.
super soft. I mean, even LeBron, and this was a regular season game. I don't know if it was this year or last year. Someone kind of face guarded him a little bit, didn't even touch him. He acts like he gets smacked in the head and falls to the floor, and I'm like,
and they'll just give that to him
I have
every
zero
time.
respect for people that can't. I mean, back in the day when we didn't watch basketball because we weren't around, you could body people, and
Yeah.
the ref would be like, "Nah, it's clean."
Yeah, that's what everyone
Nowadays,
says about the old school NBA. Is
You
like,
sneeze in the locker room, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a technical foul. I can't
Yeah.
believe you'd say that to me." And everyone's like, "Well, what happened?" They're like,
Right.
"Oh, that's a double technical.
Yeah.
You're out of here." And you go,
and so they're giving this to Harden all the time, and a dude who shoots. Well, I don't know what his free throw percentage is, but he makes most.
"Got to
of them.
be over 95."
It's it's in the 90s. So the dude will just go to the line. I don't know, 8-10 times a game, drain all his free throws. So there's all of his points off of free throws right there. You're just giving him buckets. And I mean, granted, he's a really, really immensely talented scorer. Like, he's a super gifted player. I actually liked James Harden, I will say. I think since he left the Thunder, he's become like one of the most frustrating and annoying players to watch in the NBA. Just because, like I said, if you're not a Rockets fan and you're rooting for a good game or you're rooting for the team who's playing them, you're like, what do we do with this guy? Because he's just going to go through the scenarios that I just laid out, and there's like basically no defense for that, especially if the refs are just going to give him free points all game.
Well, and I mean, everyone goes, "We'll just contest a shot," but the NBA, in their infinite wisdom, made it to where if you're a shooter and you go to take a shot, you can kick your legs out, jump
Yeah.
into a person, and it's a foul.
Right.
So as a defender, you go, well, why don't we all just take turns? Like, we all just pick a spot on the floor. You can't move from that spot, and we'll just each take turns shooting.
Yeah.
We'll just rotate each a 5-person shooting, no defense. Because you could play great defense. You're straight up and down. You're not, you're not trying to come over with a block or something, and you end up smacking them. All right, yeah, I'll call that a foul. And they just jump into you, and the refs are like, "Oh my God, you
Yeah.
almost killed the guy." It's
Yeah.
like, What do you want me to do? I
Yeah.
didn't leave my feet. I stood there with my hand up, straight up and down, didn't move,
Yeah.
and you can jump into people. So
There's just nothing you can do there.
no, and even if you step back and he falls on the ground, they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
it was the wind from your, breath that blew him down.
I've been watching some playoff games over the last week or so, and I can't tell you how many times I was texting you guys about it. I was like, I can't tell you how many times in the Trailblazers Lakers game the other day, Dwight Howard came out there and they just did nothing but call fouls on Dwight Howard for the first 10 minutes he was in the game. And they showed the slow motion replay on all of these fouls they were calling.
And
I'm
zero
like,
were
that
fouls.
is not a foul. I'm sorry. It's just not a foul. And they're just, what will happen is there'll be a play where two guys are close to each other or someone's arm or elbow comes close to a guy's face.
And they flop.
The guy jerks his head back, flopping like, oh my God, he just elbowed me in the face. Did you see that? And the ref sees it. You can tell he's just seeing it out of the corner of his eye. And goes, oh, that must have been a foul. He must have got hit in the face. And you're like, it's not a foul. He didn't actually get hit.
And
What are we doing here?
That's why for me it can become really hard to watch the NBA. It's just
Yeah, it gets kind of rough sometimes.
you're all grown men. Like, it's okay to be physical with each other. I'm not saying you gotta be throwing bows and stuff because no one wants to play like that. No one wants to get hurt. But
it's the playoffs.
there's a
Let
little
him
bit of
play a little
let
bit.
them
Yeah.
play. I mean, I'm a huge hockey fan. In the playoffs, you can do shit you can't do in the regular
Exactly.
season. And
It
I
should
get it's a
be-
physical sport, but I mean, they're doing stuff, and the refs are like, listen, if that was a regular season, we'll call it. But
Right.
it's the playoffs. You're supposed to play hard. You're supposed to play
Exactly.
a little dirty.
It should be reffed differently in the postseason than it is in the regular season. It matters more now.
It matters more, and I think
Let them play a little bit. Are you really going to get a guy in foul trouble because of a bunch of ticky-tack fouls in a playoff game? Like, what are you doing here? You can't take a key cog out of a team or a key player out of a team because of fouls when they're not fouls.
Yeah, well,
That affects how the coaches rotate, cycle guys in and out on their rotations. If some dude comes in, gets 3 fouls immediately, he gets yanked out of the game, and he doesn't have a chance to impact the game in a way that he could if he hadn't got all those ticky-tack
right.
fouls.
Well, and
called on,
I think a lot of it has to do, and I'm sure there's statistics out there that show, but a lot of it has to do with the name on the back of the jersey.
Oh, absolutely.
Jokic gets 0 calls, and then all of a sudden James Harden goes in, and or LeBron goes in, or Westbrook goes in. I mean, Westbrook's actually one that doesn't get very many calls. I'll give him that because he plays physical,
Yeah.
and the refs let people play physical against him. But if that was James Harden, James Harden's going to score 90 points a game.
I was going to say they don't ref anyone in the league like they do James Harden.
Right.
Like, it's pretty clear if you watch any games.
If you're going to call that foul for one person and not for another, then I don't think you should be a ref. Because
Exactly. Like,
being
what
a
are we
ref
doing
is,
here?
is supposed
Yeah.
to be about being consistent. And so, going back to that series, since we just went on a huge rant about James Harden, how much,
I'm happy.
I hate the guy,
OKC pulled off the win today, so they won. That game was today, correct?
yeah, it was
three.
an overtime game. 3
Yeah,
today.
overtime, 119 to 107. OKC got the win there. Of course, Harden went for 38 points. But I'm happy to see OKC get a game in there, although I don't have much faith at all that they're going to win this series.
See,
After watching the first 2 games, I was like, the Rockets are going to win this series, no problem.
right, that series is going to come down to being one of those damn dog. Those series that I think CP3 is going to have to come through as that leader. I think they got talent. I think they could put together, a run to beat the Rockets. But CP3 is going to have to put together that leadership and be like, listen, we can do this, but we got to do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy that will do that. He's a great leader. He's a great player still. But the firepower on the Rockets and the refs that play for the Rockets
That's the 4-5 matchup, right?
It's 4-5.
Okay, I was going to say OKC's coming in as the 5 seed.
Yeah.
I think the Thunder are overachieving what people expected from them this year, at least in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. But I think they're a little bit overachieving.
Now, I'd have to agree, but moving into the next matchup so we don't keep spending too much time on James Harden. 'Cause
Right, so-
everything will go back into James Harden.
So what do we think there? Probably Houston.
I'd probably say Houston in 6.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pick a game count, but I'm picking Houston to move
I'd
on.
probably say Houston in 6, unless maybe Westbrook's injury.
They're up 2-1 right now.
Because did Westbrook play today, right?
I don't know, actually. I don't see him in the box score.
Okay, well, maybe if Westbrook doesn't come back, then I could give the edge to OKC, but it's going to be tough still. If Westbrook comes back, then I'm giving the edge to Houston and probably.
I don't see Westbrook in the box score. So he hasn't played the first 3 games.
So I could give the. I mean, that to me could make it a toss up. So, but I would still say probably Houston in 6.
Yeah.
But the winner of that is going to have to play against either the Lakers or Portland. And honestly, I think besides maybe Nuggets Jazz, that's going to be the closest series in the West.
The Lakers Portland series.
Portland is, their record doesn't show how well they play together. They're a very good coach team. They play hard. They've got a lot of big names. You got Lillard, McCollum, Carmelo.
Melo's
Nurkic,
actually been quietly very productive.
Hassan Whiteside.
Hassan Whiteside's
talks
been
about.
he's been that game 1 that I watched the other day. He was all over the Lakers on defense with a bunch of blocks. So Lakers won today, that game that was finishing up as Matt and I sat down to record, 116-108. They now have a 2-1 lead in that series. I think I watched all of game 1, and it was a really exciting game. And if anyone has been paying attention to the playoffs in the bubble, well, really just the restart of the regular season into the playoffs in the bubble, Portland has been on a tear.
Damian Lillard
has been on an absolute tear. And he's been basically putting that team on his back and saying, we are going to make it into the playoffs, and we're going to give the Lakers a run for their money. And didn't they have to win a play-in game just to get into the playoffs over Memphis, right? Yeah. So what they've done to get into the playoffs has been like the run they've been on in the last 8 games of the regular season, the play-in game, and then now the first 3 games against the Lakers has been impressive. Because after game 1, when the Lakers lost, I think a lot of people were like, wow, okay, Portland is...
Anthony Davis was getting ripped because he didn't
Portland's not messing around. Yeah, I know. And LeBron had a triple-double, had a really great game in game 1. Anthony Davis did not show up to the level that people were expecting from him. And I think when Portland won that game, everyone's like, they're not messing around. This is against the number 1 seed LA Lakers with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and Portland just came out and beat them game 1. Like, this is going to be a competitive series.
Have been good. I mean,
so today was what, an 8-point win? I don't know what game 2's score was.
Game
I'd have to look it
2's
up.
score was, it was 111-88. So the Lakers put it down on them.
So game 2 was the most lopsided.
Anthony
one.
Davis showed up. He dropped 31. But I mean, honestly, I could see that going 7, and it really just depends on how well Lillard and McCollum play, and if they can. Honestly, I know LeBron's, playoff LeBron is a different LeBron, but he's not like. If you stop AD, I think you beat the Lakers. I think AD's the wild card for the Lakers. LeBron's going to show up.
Yeah,
and
I'm not worried about. Yeah, I'm not worried about LeBron. I'm worried about Anthony Davis not showing up and pulling his weight, because he's capable of completely dominating a game.
Right.
But if he has a game where he shows up and he's not dominating, and maybe LeBron's struggling a little bit, or maybe LeBron's focusing more on his assists and getting everyone else involved than he is on scoring, and Damian Lillard's having a game that's out of his mind where he goes for 50, Portland's going to win those games.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we know LeBron's going to show up whether it's on the score sheet or – he's going to be a leader because LeBron's a natural born leader. He's a natural born, player. He's just that good. But if you don't have the support, we've seen what LeBron can't do when he doesn't have support.
Right.
You've got the team to do it. Don't get me wrong. The Lakers have the players to do it. But if he can't get the support, they're not going to go far. LeBron can't do it by himself in the West.
Yeah. This year, I think he's got the best shot team-wise that he's had in a while now.
Probably ever since he was on the Heat.
Since he was on the Heat.
Cleveland was great, but the teams that were also great just those years.
Right, and just what you have to consider now is he doesn't have to go through that gauntlet that is the Golden State Warriors this year, which is
But you still have to go through the West, which is a gauntlet in itself. It's not the East, which we're about to get to.
And you still have to conceivably match up against the LA Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, which is going to be a hell of a matchup if that's what does happen. So check this out, dude. Tonight, in the Lakers win in Game 3, LeBron goes for 38 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Anthony Davis goes for 29 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. So when those two guys have a game like that, the Lakers, I'm feeling real confident about the Lakers taking each of those games. But like we just covered, if AD doesn't show up to the full extent that he can, and maybe LeBron's not taking over a game, or for whatever reason he's slightly struggling and Dame just goes off, Portland will stay in this series and push it to 7.
Easy.
Damian Lillard had 34 tonight, by the way, and CJ McCollum had 28.
Right, and it's the same with them. They kind of need someone else, whether it's Nurkic, Whiteside, or Melo, to kind of step in and fill that void. But That series to me is not a wash at all.
It's not. It's not.
That's going to be a very tough
The Lakers
series,
are a number one seed, and they are a powerhouse when they're rolling, but they're susceptible. They're very susceptible.
I mean, to wrap up the Western Conference, so we don't fucking make this a 10-hour podcast. The West, in my opinion, is. I get everybody says the Lakers Clippers.
It's
think
more wide
the West
open
is
than the
wide
East
open,
is.
to be honest. I
Yeah.
mean, I truly think the West could be anybody who's playing their game and playing a team game and wants to be there could easily go through. I think the Nuggets could easily make it to the finals if they all show up and play the true Nuggets basketball that they played in the regular season. Because when you have Jokic dropping triple doubles, you have Murray hitting his shots. You've got Millsap crashing boards. You got Plumlee crashing boards. You know, now you got Michael Porter Jr., who's been playing lights out as a rookie. If you put all that stuff together, that's a hell of a team to play against.
Oh, yeah.
You've got, you've got your point guard that can shoot, a small forward that can shoot, power forward that can shoot. You're the best center in the NBA. I mean, tough team to play against. But
yeah, absolutely.
they are like, yeah, we're going to show up one game, and then we'll show up in game 6, and then
Which
game
is
7?
not-
We're not
right.
going to show up.
And I think the one team in the West that's kind of funny because they're like really super powered, but also I have zero faith in them winning the Western Conference is the Houston Rockets. And it feels like for years now, for several years, they've been right there on the cusp of being the best team in the West, but just not quite. Like the Warriors have been taking them down. You know, and
they
it's like,
thought getting Westbrook was going to put them over the top, and then the Lakers
and the Lakers are like,
and then
hey,
they
we're going
get
to turn
Dwight
around
Howard
and get LeBron and AD all on the same team. And yeah, I think Houston fans, it's probably really frustrating being a Houston Rockets fan because they just dominate throughout the regular season and come into the playoffs looking really strong, especially against a favorable matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder in round 1. But you're still going to end up running into one of the LA teams and most likely lose. You know, I just don't see them winning the Western Conference.
I don't see them winning the West either. I mean,
who's your pick for the Western Conference while we're thinking?
Bias taken out of it. I mean, I'd love to have the Nuggets go, but the way they've played the last 2 games, it's really tough to see them being able to win 15 more games. If the Lakers play like they have, as much as I don't like the Lakers, I have to go with the Lakers.
Yeah, I don't know. So I would be curious, and maybe you can look this up while we're talking too. What was the regular season matchup, Clippers versus Lakers?
I think it went. One way. I don't know if they bounced back and forth, or it might have been that they split. I'll see if I can find it real quick.
Because here's the thing. I think it's probably going to end up being one of the 2 LA teams, but the Clippers are in a similar situation to the Lakers where I have faith in LeBron to show up every night. I don't have faith in AD to show up every night. I have faith in Kawhi to show up every night. I don't have faith in Paul George to show up every night.
Right.
And I don't think neither Kawhi nor LeBron have enough to pull it off just on their own without help from the other guy. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I just don't think they're going to be able to pull. Like, let's say it's a game where Kawhi goes off for the Clippers, but Paul George is quiet. I think Lakers win that game. But say it's like the other way around, LeBron or AD goes off, but the other has a quiet game. I think Lakers are going to end up losing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but what will be really exciting to see is if those 2 end up matching up in the Western Conference Finals and they have both superstars have a hot night on the same night. You know, like that game is going to be like, what if all 4 of those guys go for 30? You know?
Right. I mean, so to answer your question, it was a 2-2 series split.
Oh, there we go.
In the regular season.
There we go.
So there's no clear-cut winner there.
So, yeah, no real way to tell. And I guess, I'm just curious about that kind of stuff, but you have to even consider, too, looking back on the regular season series matchups is a little misleading because it was 4 months ago. Okay, Clippers-Lakers split the regular season series 2-2, but when was the last game they played?
Well, and you got to think of injuries involved in that.
Right.
And,
there's a lot of external factors to
Right.
consider, but I think we should move on to the East.
Anyway, moving on to the East. I don't necessarily think I'm going to have too much to talk about the East because I think it's a 3-team race. So we'll just start with the top, and we can probably quickly work our way through. But the Bucks Magic is 1-8. It was a shocker to see Orlando win Game 1.
That was definitely
But
a shock.
I think the Bucks woke up. I think Giannis woke up. I think they have some leaders on that team. You have Kyle Korver. He's been there. He's an older guy. I think they're gonna finish the series out. I think it's gonna be a 4-1. They had a bad game. I think they learned from it. I'm gonna take the Bucks pretty quickly out of that one.
I am too. I don't think anyone who's been paying attention is gonna. I mean, you'd have to have a pretty strong argument for the Magic, and I just don't see there being a very strong argument, especially going against a guy like Giannis. And, like you said, huge shock when they won Game 1. That was a weird first round of the playoffs on both sides because Trailblazers took Game 1 against the Lakers, and then Magic took Game 1 against the Bucks. And everyone's like, what's happening? The 8 seeds are taking down the 1 seeds. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, well, here we are a couple games later, and now both 1 seeds now have a 2-1 advantage in the series, which is what you would expect. And I think probably both of those series are going to go on to be, well, maybe not Trailblazers Lakers, but I think this Milwaukee and Orlando series is going to end up being probably, like you said, 4-1.
Yeah. Well, and I think they got a good, favorable matchup too, moving on to the 4-5 matchup with Miami and Indiana, the Pacers. The Pacers, they're not playing bad. I mean, it seems like every game's been close. I thought that they should have won a couple games by now, but Miami's just putting it away. And, I mean, they're up 3-0. I think Miami's going to seal the deal, whether it's they lose a couple games and then finish it off. But
So, you were talking about thinking every game's close. So, like you said, we're at a little bit of an advantage here starting our initial thoughts in the NBA playoffs while we're like basically
Right.
towards the end of round 1 for some of these matchups because Heat are already up 3-0. I mean, who in their right mind is going to pick the Pacers at this point? So Game 1 was 113-101 Heat. Game 2 was a 9-point game. It was 109-100, and today they won 124-115. So
I mean, those are all close games,
Yeah.
relatively speaking.
Indiana's playing competitively, but Heat are going to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't, great for Indiana, but either way, I don't think either of these teams matches up well against the Bucks, and I think the Bucks will get on to the conference finals.
I agree. I haven't watched enough of the Heat to really speak intelligently on that team, but Jimmy
got some good
Butler,
players,
Jimmy
Dragic.
Butler is a beast. Dragic is really good, but
Adebayo or
I just don't think, like you said, they don't have enough to beat
don't-
Milwaukee. I think in the East, like you said, and normally for basically all of our adult lives, the East has been predominantly the weaker conference, and I think that's still the case.
I mean, honestly, there's been, besides maybe the year you had Boston's big three and Miami's big three, other than that, I mean, LeBron won 66 games in the East, and then they went and got swept in the finals. And he, I wouldn't say it was a breeze through the playoffs, but it was pretty much a breeze through the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's
The
one of those
East
things where,
sucks.
like you said, they've had a couple years where they've had maybe the top 2 teams in the East have been really good teams, but the rest of the teams have been just terrible. Whereas, like, you look at every year in the Western Conference, the top 8 seeds in the playoffs are all above 500, all really good teams.
I mean, so Orlando made it at 33-40 as the 8th seed, and then Brooklyn
Not
made it
good.
as 35-37 as the 7th. So both teams under 500.
Yeah.
In the West, Portland made it at 35-39, under 500. I think Portland beats half of the teams.
Portland's a way
in
stronger
the
team.
East. And then in the 7th seed, you had Dallas, who was 43-32
Yeah.
as the 7th
The
seed.
7 seed in the West, yeah.
Every team in the West, besides in terms of playoffs, besides Dallas and Portland, had above a 600 win percentage.
Yeah. So it just goes to show you it's still the case where the Western Conference is much stronger. So I see the Bucks as a very strong, they finished with the best record in the regular season.
Yep.
They got Giannis, who's, if not the best player in the world right now, he's like number 2. He's in the conversation as like best basketball player on the planet right now. And I think he leads them to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they're probably going to win that and advance to the finals, would be my guess.
So that brings us into our next matchup, because honestly, I thought this one was going to be a lot closer, but without Ben Simmons on the 76ers,
That's another thing to think about,
it really changed.
Because with that
the
one, it's
76ers.
Celtics and Sixers, right?
Right, so 3-6, Celtics being the 3, 76ers being the 6, and Celtics are up 3-0.
Yeah, yesterday they won 102-94. They went up 3-0. And like you said, Ben Simmons went down, and Joel Embiid has been trying his absolute best, but he just can't do it alone.
No, and people keep saying
Boston's a good team.
they've got other players on Philly, but without Ben Simmons, who I guess he when he was in the bubble, he was draining threes, so he learned how to shoot three in 4
Finally.
months.
That's been his biggest thing. Everyone's like, he can't shoot threes.
But the Celtics, Kemba Walker's playing great. You got
Celtics have a really good team. And Brad Stevens, they're really well
Jaylen
coached.
Brown, Tatum.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're a good team, man.
they've got talent.
Yeah.
They just got to put it together.
Yeah.
So I got to give – I mean, yeah, like you said, we've got an advantage
we're at
with
an
them being
advantage
3-0.
here, yeah.
But, ever since Simmons went down, I thought that series was over.
Yeah.
Celtics won, whether they were down 2-0 in the series or whenever he got hurt. Celtics, in my opinion, were going to win as soon as Simmons went down because
he's too important to that
he's
team.
too important to that team, and I think the Celtics are very well coached with Stevens. And
it's kind of like the Clippers-Mavericks matchup where now if Luka's out, it's like, man,
what could have been is
exactly.
now,
their odds of winning that series now decreased drastically,
Yep.
which sucks.
and
Because we all would have liked to have seen a fully healthy 76ers team go against that Boston
Right.
team. That would have been a blast.
Well, and I think that takes us well into the next matchup too with the Raptors Nets. I mean, the Raptors are a great team. They've got big pieces.
They just announced today Nick Nurse won Coach of the Year for the Toronto Raptors, and I think that's well deserved because think about it. They win the championship last year over the Warriors.
And then you lose the MVP.
Lose
Kawhi.
the Finals MVP in Kawhi to the Clippers, and here they are again in the playoffs this
Second
year
seed
and second
with,
seed, and basically they're up 3-0. They're going on to the second round of the
Right,
Eastern
and they were
Conference
53-19 in the regular season.
Yeah.
Not a
What was that second best record?
second best
in the
behind
East? Yeah.
the 56-17 Bucks. They're not slouching.
What they've done is pretty.
They're
incredible.
playing great. Now the Nets, who the Raptors are playing.
I don't know anything about the Brooklyn Nets. I'll be completely
you got to
honest.
just know that they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving.
Oh, that's right. But they've obviously both been out.
But they're always going to be injured because,
So that'll
as
be-
Brandon will probably say, Kevin Durant doesn't have legs; he just has toothpicks. And I think when the Nets get them back, that'll catapult them into a top 4.
that's going to be super
seeded
interesting when
East.
they come back.
But it really depends on how well they'll play together. Because Kyrie wants his own team.
If there's anything that Kyrie Irving has established in his time in the NBA, it's that he likes being the guy. And
Which
he likes having the ball every possession.
Kevin Durant is a better scorer, in my opinion.
Absolutely better score.
So at the end of the game, if I'm on the Nets, I'm not giving the ball to Kyrie over KD. KD's a mismatch no matter where. I mean,
he's
the dude-
basically unstoppable.
The dude's like a 15-foot tall small forward, and he can shoot over any other small forward in the league.
Kevin
and-
Durant is unstoppable. So
So when he's healthy, and I'm the Nets, I'm not giving the ball to Kyrie for the game-winning shot. I'm giving
it'll
it
be
to Durant.
really
So-
interesting to see if they can figure out that dynamic there when those two guys are back healthy, which it was kind of starting to scare me because with this whole COVID thing where they delayed the season for 4 months, I was like, are these guys going to potentially be back by the time the playoffs start?
Well,
We're
I
going to
think-
see a totally different Brooklyn roster than we did in the
I
regular
think
season.
Durant was close to being cleared, but I
Yeah.
think he said, I'm not coming back this year.
Yeah, let's just save it for
There's
next
no
year.
need to
Yeah,
rush.
There's no need to rush it, which I think is the right move.
But with that being said,
Wait, can I just, real quick before we move on?
yeah.
Let me just give a quick shout out to Pascal Siakam, who's a
Yes.
New Mexico State Aggie, which is where I went to school. That dude has been making a real name for himself in the Toronto Raptors. Tonight, he went for 26, 8, and 5.
I think he's their new number 1. I think he's their best player.
He's good,
Kyle
man.
Lowry's a great player, but he's more of a. I think Kyle Lowry's more of what's the word I'm trying to go for?
Like a facilitator,
Like a
maybe?
facilitator.
Yeah.
He makes good plays for other people.
Did you know who else I really like on that team is Fred VanVleet.
Dude,
He was so awesome in the playoffs last
Yeah.
year. I loved watching him in the finals.
But I mean, with that being said, I could easily see the Raptors back in the finals. And
Do you think it'll be Milwaukee and Toronto in the finals for the Eastern Conference?
I think Celtics Raptors, whoever wins that will go. I love
That'll be
I
probably be a
love
really good
Giannis
matchup.
with the Bucks, and Brandon will tell you when we get him on here, hopefully this week. He's a huge Giannis guy.
Yeah.
I'll give it to Brandon right now. Back in college,
called it long time
when
ago.
Giannis was a
I remember
rookie
that.
on Milwaukee and like a 60 overall on NBA 2K. We were playing, and he goes, "Dude, I play on the Bucks with my career guy, and this Giannis guy is a freak. He's so good."
Yeah.
And he said he's going to be good in the NBA, and so I got to give
He did.
props to Brandon.
We got to give a shout out to Brandon because he called that years
he
ago.
called
I remember him
Giannis
telling me.
being a-
Yeah, I remember him
you
telling me,
know-
dude, you got to look out for this Giannis Antetokounmpo guy. He's an absolute freak.
and so he called that one right, and You know,
And here he is. Fast forward a few years later, he's in regular season
here he
MVP
is.
award
He's
winner already, and
one of the best, if not the best,
Yeah.
right now in the league.
exactly.
And, I mean, I love watching him play. He plays hard.
Yeah.
He plays emotional, which I get.
Yeah.
I really enjoy because he gets into the games.
Yeah.
So I would love to see the Bucks in the championship. Don't get me wrong. I still think they're too young. I still think maybe if they could get to the conference finals this year, that would be a huge stepping stone. Kind of like
Yeah.
the Nuggets. Everyone says it's title or bust for the Nuggets. If we get to the conference finals, we
That'd
took
be-
another
yeah.
step from last year. You know, we advanced
Yeah.
to the second
Got
round.
a little bit closer.
We're right there. We're tasting it. Our young guys, Jamal Murray, you know, Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., they all get that. You know, in the offseason, we could get rid of Gary Harris and Will Barton, bring in another big piece, you know, solidify either a better defensive player. You know, Gary Harris is great on defense, but his scoring has gone way down, or get us a shooter, you know, bring
Yeah.
us in someone that's like, hey, you guys can score. I'm here.
Yeah.
And, you know, so as much as I want to say the Bucks are going to make it, going back to our 2-7, I think Raptors. I think it's going to be Raptors, Bucks in the East, and bias aside, I think I could see Lakers, Clippers in the.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. It's going to
In
be
the
one of the
West.
two LA teams out of the West, and I would rather see Milwaukee go. Although I do like Toronto a lot, and like I said, I'm just pulling for them because they ended that potential. It would have been a three-peat for the Warriors, right?
Right.
I think it would
I
have been.
think
Or just a two-peat, maybe.
it
back
might
to
have been
back.
a back-to-back again.
Because wait a second, they won 2 years in a row. Then the Cavs beat them. Then they won again. So they won 3 out of 4, and then they lost to the Raptors in their 5th year in the finals. I think.
Right.
So that wouldn't have been a three-peat. It would have been back-to-back, though. I think.
We'll pull it up real quick.
I was gonna say you can double check me on that. I'm just doing that off the top of my head, but. I love Toronto, man. Like the fact, just watching the finals last year and seeing them beat Golden State. Like no one wanted to see Golden State lose more than me. I'm so over that team just dominating.
It would have been 3 in a row, and it.
Okay, so it would have been 3 in a row.
Right. So in
Oh no,
20
so I had it wrong. It was Golden State won, then Cleveland won, then Golden State
That-
won 2 in a row, right?
Right, so it was Golden State beat Cleveland. Golden State lost to Cleveland.
Right.
Golden State beat Cleveland. Golden State beat Cleveland. Golden State lost to Toronto.
Right.
So
out of 5 years, Golden State won 3 times, lost once to the Cavs and once to Toronto.
so had Golden State not choked a 3-1 lead, they would have won 4 in a row and been in their 5th straight finals with a chance to win 5 in a row,
Which is unbelievable.
which in modern day NBA shouldn't happen with salary caps.
Yeah.
But they miraculously had Kevin Durant on their team. They even had DeMarcus Cousins at one point.
Yeah.
You know, Steph Curry, Klay
think that's-
Thompson,
we
Draymond
should-
Green,
we should do
Sean
a-
Livingston. Like
We should do a
the
whole
list goes
discussion,
on.
a whole podcast on the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland.
We can't have
because
Brandon on for that one because
It'll get heated.
he'll get
But
way
I
too
would like to
heated.
discuss that at some point. Just 4 years in a row of Cleveland and Golden State, and just that battle every year of LeBron seeing like everyone's just tuning in. Well, can LeBron come back and just
Well-
bring that team to a win over this superstar team in Golden State, which is basically the Western Conference All-Star team? You know,
I'm just going to run through the last 20 years of NBA championships, starting in '99,
okay.
and we'll just count on our hands.
There's a lot of Spurs, Heat, and Warriors.
We'll
in there.
count on our hands West compared to East to make our comparison. So in '99, that's after the Bulls' run of 3 in a row.
Yeah.
So we got the Spurs, Lakers, Spurs.
I forgot about the Lakers doing.
Then the
their-
Pistons come in and beat the Lakers. And then the Spurs come back in and beat the Pistons. Then in 2006, the Heat win, and that was Dwayne Wade and
D-Wade and like Alonzo Mourning
and Shaq.
Shaq.
And then so the Heat are like, yeah, we won. And then the Spurs are like, hey, Cleveland, we know you literally just have LeBron James, this young kid.
right.
We're gonna smoke you 4-0 real quick.
What year was that again? Remind me?
2007.
2007. So that's LeBron's first finals appearance.
Yep. And then Boston goes, well, we just traded everything in the world for Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and
Rajon Rondo,
we had Rajon
and Ray
Rondo, Ray
Allen.
Allen. And so then they go on and they beat the Lakers. And then the Lakers go, all right, well, we'll raise you one. And they beat the Magic and the Celtics back to back.
That's
So
right.
they won 2 more. Then the Mavericks go, well, we're good too. And they beat LeBron and the Heat.
I remember that.
And then the Heat go, okay, well, now that we got experience
The Heat
together.
go back to back.
They
don't
go back to back over the Thunder and the Spurs. And then San Antonio goes, well, that's cool. You're done.
They end the Heat dynasty.
Yeah, we're taking our
Kawhi, his first
Kawhi,
championship,
his
first
championship.
Finals MVP.
And then Golden State goes, well, we just built a dynasty out of drafting people
Yeah.
and
And
under
then
radar draft
For
picks.
the next
and,
4 years, it's Golden State
and they
Cleveland.
go,
matching
Golden
up.
State beats Cleveland. Cleveland has the best comeback in NBA Finals history.
Yep.
Probably in NBA history. Let's just be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
You beat the
Beat
arguably the
basically
best
team
team
ever, down 3-1.
down 3-1 in the
finals.
finals. You come back and win 3 straight.
Yeah.
2 on away
Unbelievable.
on foreign ground. And then Golden State goes, well, we're not happy with that. So, LeBron, we're going to make you go 8-1 in your next 8 or guess what, 9 games against us in the finals. And then they go, we're going to just win a third in a row. And the Raptors and Kawhi come in and go, just kidding.
Yeah.
And
Kawhi,
win in Golden
Kawhi
State.
moves to his second team, wins a second NBA championship, and a second Finals MVP.
So, with all that being said, nothing stacks well for the East in the last 20 years.
Exactly.
They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 7. So it's 13-7 in the last 20
In the
years.
last 20 years, yeah.
And the West is stacked again. The East, you've got 3 teams. I think you've got the Bucks, you've got the Raptors, and you have the Celtics. I just don't think any of them really can match up well against any team really in the West.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if the Nuggets sneak in, they could match up well. Like I think it'd go 7, but I think the Lakers are going to go, as much as I don't want them to, because I just despise the Lakers. Although rest in peace, Kobe, gone too soon.
Yeah, definitely R.I.P. Kobe.
But I just think the Lakers are too good of a team to have anyone in the East beat them.
I don't know what is going to come of if it ends up being Clippers, Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. I haven't seen those 2 teams play enough to really make an educated guess at this point. I would love to tune in for that series. Right now, at this point, all I'm willing to say is I think it's going to be one of the 2 LA teams that comes out of the West, whether that be Lakers or Clippers. And I'm going to say I'm putting my money on Milwaukee. I'm pulling for Milwaukee out of the East.
I'm pulling for Milwaukee. I'd like to see Milwaukee, Toronto. I don't want to see Boston. Never liked Boston sports.
I would like to see Milwaukee, Toronto. And I'm really pulling for, if Giannis can win the East, go into the finals, and either win the finals or maybe just make it close and lose in the NBA finals, that vaults him into a whole other category in the NBA.
That vaults him into that superstar.
Yeah,
like
now
top
he's a
3.
bona fide superstar. He's an NBA regular season MVP
Yep.
award winner. He's taken his team to the NBA finals with a bright future ahead. It's his league. You know what I mean?
I think if the Nuggets can't win the championship, I want the Bucks to win.
Okay, fair enough. To be completely honest, I love the Nuggets. I have zero faith in them going.
Oh,
to the
I
NBA
also
finals.
have zero faith in the Nuggets because I've watched them play, and like you said earlier, they're one of the teams that they get down and they just are like, we lost. And it's like, you're down by 1 with 44 minutes to go.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where I know in my gut they're going to let me down ultimately. I don't want it to happen, but the smart sports fan, Nuggets fan side of me just goes in the back of my head, Zach, don't put too much faith in them because they're going to let you down. Like, they might win 1 round, but you're not getting much else out of them.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the team. Don't get me wrong. If they all show up, they could easily make it to the finals and easily win the finals. But having them all show up for 4 games out of a series is a if that I would rather go buy a Powerball ticket and I'll probably win Powerball and I could go buy the Nuggets before they win the championship.
Yeah, so we're both of us are taking out of the West. You're saying Lakers. I'm saying either Lakers or Clippers at this point. And we'll come back and we'll keep doing episodes throughout the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
we'll probably be
keep
back
updating
in
our opinions.
4 or 5 days with Brandon on, hopefully, and
Get another opinion
Get another
in here
opinion
on the
after
playoffs.
some first round matchups are over, and
then I'm thinking Milwaukee out of the East. That's what I'm going to go with right now.
yeah, I would say Milwaukee, Toronto out of the East, and then putting being realistic. I got to take the Lakers out of the West as much as I don't want them to, because I hate when teams are built from free agency. I'm a big fan of drafting your team.
Yeah, building it up
and building. I mean, that's why I do give as much as everyone hates the Warriors, they did get good draft picks there.
Yeah.
and built, a lot of pieces on that team. But
I would like to say, too, I would be happy with seeing the Lakers win because I am a LeBron James fan. And seeing him get his 4th title just adds a little bit more ammo in that argument that everyone inevitably has when there's not basketball games on of who the greatest of all time is and all this kind of stuff. Stacking on another championship for him on his resume would be huge, especially in year 17. But it would be really cool to see Giannis win his first title as well. I think both of those would be pretty awesome to see.
And to put a asterisk on the best of all time, which I think we should do another episode on.
That'd be a good topic to talk about.
And I think I've talked with Brandon about this, and I want anyone that listens to this to understand where I'm going to come from. There can't be a best of all time in a sport that has 5 different positions. You can't say the greatest football player of all time is Tom Brady. It's like...
Yeah, it's like he's the greatest quarterback, maybe.
That's great.
Right.
Put Tom Brady and Brian Urlacher on a field one-on-one. Only one person's coming off of that field. So does that mean Brian Urlacher is the greatest player of all time because he beat Tom Brady? No. Tom Brady is arguably, well, we'll find out this year with him being on a new team, but he was in arguably the best system for him with New England.
Well, and like you said, it's a position-by-position thing. So yeah, if you want to sit here and talk
small forwards
about
go, he's definitely who's
the greatest
starting 5.
Small forward of all time, or who's the greatest point guard of all time, or who's the greatest center of all time. Those are all different discussions.
Right. So
Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan are two completely different types of players.
Right. So we'll bring you another episode of we'll do a greatest starting 5 of all time. But I think for now, I think we're good with our first round.
Yeah, this is just initial thoughts.
Right.
It's not pre-thoughts because like the first round's almost over. With
the first round's 75% over pretty much, but we'll be back after a lot of ends, and we'll be back later this week with Brandon on hopefully, and we'll get his opinion on some stuff and get some more insight onto the second round matchups that are some will be solidified, others we could be getting ready for game 6s and 7s, and we'll have a lot more to go off of. So
yeah, definitely. So I think that wraps up our discussion on NBA playoffs. Everyone out there who's listening, our whole 5 listeners that we have,
we thank you.
Be sure to go out there. Yeah, hype us up to your friends. Go out there, listen to us. We are now on Spotify officially. I listened to a little bit of our episode the other day on Spotify because that's where I listen to most of my podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're on Podbean. I think we're on Amazon Play now or something like that.
We're working to get onto Amazon right now. The Amazon Play video, whatever audio.
Yeah, whatever they call it. So we're basically at all of the major podcast streaming services. So whatever your favorite one is, go out, like, subscribe, comment. Do all that stuff.
We got a Facebook page too. Just browsing. Feel free to go follow the page. After we shoot an episode like this, we usually upload it right away. We post the link into Facebook, so feel free to follow that. It kind of keeps you up to date. Leave us comments, leave us another topic you want to hear about, or tell us your opinion on, whether Zach and I are wrong, or if you agree with it or not, or, just let us know. We know we've got some NBA fans out there, and we'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions. We'll give you guys a shout out in the next episode, and, bring your opinion into the matter as well. So
yeah, definitely. And we're NBA fans here, and I would say, we've done our last several episodes on movies, and I consider myself to be kind of a movie buff, and I would be able to have an intelligent discussion with anyone about movies. But I will admit I don't know as much about the NBA, and I don't follow it as closely as I do like movies or even like the NFL. So we are in here talking about the NBA playoffs, and I follow it relatively closely, but I'm sure there are some NBA heads out there who can be hearing some of my opinions and thinking I'm an absolute moron. And feel free to write in to our Gmail email and bring some stats and say, Zach, you're an idiot, and here's why I think you're wrong. We'll talk about it on the next episode.
You can comment on the Podbean. You can comment on Facebook. You can comment on the YouTube. You can send us the email. You can find that on our Facebook page. And, we'd love to have a debate brought up, whether it's through another a listener, and, put us in our place so we can try and rebuttal ourselves. And, we'd love to have you guys, talking with us.
So hopefully next time you guys tune in, we'll have Brandon on the episode to do some more NBA playoffs talk as the rounds move along. I don't know. Might not be completely into round 2 by next time, but I guarantee we'll have some of the round 2 matchups locked up by that time that we record. So, yep, we'll have another opinion on here on the podcast. So, tune in next time. And then till then, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
And have a good day.
We love you.
Bye-bye.